concession contract with each of the 6 enterprises respectively. And now the Committee of Public Tender is going to answer the questions raised by media. Now we have Secretary Zhang Wingchun, Chairman of the Public Tender Committee for the Concession Operating Casino Games Chance, Secretary Lei Weino, Secretary Ouyang Yu, and Director Andrino Ho. And now, first of all, we would like to invite Secretary Zhang to make a brief introduction. Dear friends from media, today, the Chief Executive had issued the executive order today and has awarded the gaming concession contracts to 6 of the 6 enterprises respectively. And just now, he signed the contract with the 6 enterprises. And the validity will be 10 years. Later, the 6 enterprises, the contract of the 6 enterprises will be issued on the official gazette. And tomorrow morning, me and Secretary Li will hold a press conference and to explain to you the development plan of the 6 enterprises. So, do you have any questions concerning the public tender and the concession ground? Now you can ask questions. Yeah, this journalist from TDM. I'm from TDM. So I would like to ask about the press release. You mentioned that you will designate teams of officials and to assess and follow up the project implementation of the 6 awardees. So how the public will know about the implementation of it? And what are the promises of these 6 enterprises? And now because they because there will be more laborers and employees required to fill the gaps of migrant workers. What kind of measures are they going to take? Thank you very much. Before, in the press release by the government, it mentioned that after the public tender, with the arrival of the new year on the 1st of January 2023, the newly revised gaming laws and regulations, and based on the relevant regulations, they're going to be implemented and put into practice. And with the new contract and with the new laws and regulations, they're going to start their operation. And in their proposals, we can see that the 6 enterprises have made a very good plan for the next 10 years. They have very good promises, and they also showed the future direction of development. And in this aspect, the SAR government will, with the coordination of the relevant committee, the colleagues and officials from different government departments, to follow up the implementations of these projects. And one of the jobs that we're going to do is to follow up the promises of investment and whether these investments will be done according to the bidding documents. And of course, there will be a mechanism, and in these bidding documents, it has been mentioned. One of these items mentioned in the contract is that each enterprise will need to submit the non-gaming investment plans, non-gaming development plans by the end of September for the next year. Thank you very much for your question. I think it's about the employment of the local residents. This is something that we pay special attention to. And the government and the chief executive several times emphasized that to assure the employment of the local residents, it's very important. Because only when the employment is stable will the society is stable. And at the beginning of the public tender, we all pay much attention to this issue. And no matter in the documents they submitted or in the proposals, we will follow it up and will closely inspect the implementation of the employment section. And because the non-gaming sector projects will be our concern in the next 10 years, the purpose of which is to enhance Macau's international position as a leader center. And just now you mentioned the migrant workers to Macau. We mentioned before that the migrant workers are just used to supplement the local labor market. And this is what our government will emphasize always. Thank you very much. Now the next question. The female journalist and from Radio Macau. Just now I noticed that in the future, the non-gaming section will be 10 times that of the designated number. And will there be any of the recent projects that will be implemented? And how can we assess the effect or the result of the project? Does it mean that the gaming sector will be decreased in terms of its proportion? And are you going to offer training for the employees in the future? Thank you. In the public tender this time, we have finally 6 enterprises, and the number of investment in terms of the non-gaming sector is over 100 billion. And in this part, because the SCR government has made it very clear that in the new stage of development, our focus would be on the foreign market and the non-gaming sector, and that is the requirement. We made it very clear. And after 20 years of development of Macau, gaming sector, no matter in terms of software and infrastructure, we have already had a very considerable size. But it's impossible that we extend it unlimited. And so that we will allow future development, further development for the non-gaming sector, non-gaming projects. And this time, the development of the non-gaming part, each enterprise has its very detailed plans and proposals. And it is actually detailed into each year. So, for example, in 2023, each enterprise has already got its annual plan. For example, some performances, exhibitions, and this is what we require in the bidding documents. And of course, as to when these projects will be implemented, it depends on the pandemic situation. And we will hand over these projects to the companies concerned, enterprises concerned, and they are going to explain very much in detail tomorrow. And when we are emphasizing that the non-gaming projects, their development is actually in harmony with the development of the gaming projects and gaming sector, because that will help to consolidate Macau's role as the center of world leisure activities. And at the same time, we're also encourage the development of the gaming sector in a very healthy way. And I've I just answered this question, the non-gaming sector, of course, will attract future employees, and by taking this opportunity, they can develop their talents in other fields. And some of the former employees from the gaming sector, they have changed their career path and has been successful. So I hope we will all be very confident about the future. And those six enterprises, they have got the contracts, and you can be sure that they have a schedule, they have a timetable, and they have their very detailed plan. And for those people who will participate in the new development of the gaming sectors, with the changing industries, they will find their suitable jobs in the future. And as we know that the non-gaming projects will be new to us, so the employees will also make changes accordingly.
Da TDM Canal Macau. Seria possível detalhar a classificação obtida por cada componente?
I would like to ask. And now, the enterprises, what are their scores they have in the public tender? And the Malaysian company, why they failed in this public tender? And right now, we have loosened the policies on the control of the pandemic. And is it because we want to attract more overseas tourists to Macau? Are these policies related to the future plan of attracting more overseas tourists? Moreover, if we can loosen the control on the pandemic policies, can we make it actually more flexibility so that we can attract more tourists to Macau? And we actually, in the process of bidding process, we have already considered at least 7 items, and their scores on these items, their exact scores will not be published, will not be released. But then I can tell you, there are some main areas we consider. For example, the exploration and expanding of the overseas market. And in these aspects, each enterprise, they will explain their plans tomorrow in a press conference. For example, what promise they have made in the non-gaming sector, and what plan they are going to have in exploring the overseas market. So tomorrow you will know that they have these plans and different projects, and then they can get scores. And it's not the only score that we would consider, or only the projects that we consider, but we'll also take into consideration the social effects, their promises, and the promises of their investment, what will be the reward for society. And of course, the society will inspect their implementation of the process. And in the whole public tender process, they have the right of knowing what is going on. And these enterprises, they can actually apply for a copy of the tender documents, so that the the scores that they have will be shown on it.
So when necessary, the companies, or whether the winning companies or the losing company, they can apply to the committee to ask for necessary documents. About the COVID pandemic situation, over the recent times, we have loosened the restrictions and policies because the country has issued the 20 articles and also the latest, the 9th article about COVID policy. So we follow them and have loosened the restrictions. And we are very happy that the loosening of the policies can match the time, the signing of these concession contracts. So they are not absolutely related. They are separated, actually. But as we have started to loosen the policies, for example, today we have loosened the requirements for quarantine for arrivals from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and overseas. So I think in the near future, very near future, after the loosening of the policies, we can see what the influence will be. And if everything is under control, I think within a short period of time, we can further loosen the restrictions. Next question, please. The journalist here. I am from GCR Asia. Following on your response, we know that today you have new policies, loosening restrictions for quarantine from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and overseas. But we want to know the SAR government, when you discuss with the concessionaires the plans in the coming 10 years, we know that you care about non-gaming elements. And of course, we all hope that there will be more overseas tourists. So from your perspective, will you create some conditions for them, for the gaming operators, so that within a short period of time we can see some good news? So that, for example, quarantine will not be needed anymore, and we can see some more good results, good news. And also from your press releases, we can see that the total investment made by them will reach 100 billion, and they will also expand the foreign markets. So can I understand it in this way that most of the things they will invest in will be like soft elements, for example, holding events, rather than investment in hardware projects? So can you just explain it a bit? Thank you for your question. As said by Ms. Ao Yang-yu, the SAR government has been adjusting the COVID policies. First, out of the needs of Macau and for the sake of the health of Macau people, and the loosening or tightening of the COVID policies is not necessarily related to the signing of the new contracts. They are not related. It's a coincidence that as we signed the contracts today, the COVID policies are also loosened. So when we held the press conference on the provisional awarding, We also talked about expanding foreign markets, right? We've been talking about it. The pandemic is just like a process. It will end. So I think we need to consider the situation of Macau and the safety of Macau people. And you were asking about the investment of the 6 gaming operators in non-gaming elements. The total investment will reach 100 billion. Among the 100 billion, there is investment in hardware like facilities and equipment, because the investment, of course, cannot be just simply about holding events like concerts and events, but for high-quality performances, exhibitions. Of course, it will require high-level hardware too. So in this 100 billion investment, it includes both hardware and software. But as for what they are specifically, I think tomorrow you can learn more about them. You can talk to them, talk to the 6 gaming operators. Next question, please. The gentleman here. I'm from Inside Asia Gaming. I have noticed that you have signed the contracts with the 6 gaming operators. Then what about satellite casinos? How many satellite casinos will be kept? And what about the rest? And I want to know how many are there now, will be left. By the end of June this year, when we signed the extension contracts with the 6 gaming operators, there were 18 satellite casinos. So according to the gaming law now, if these concessionaires get the new concession, the satellite casinos affiliated to them, they will need to listen to the advice by the gaming committee and also get the approval by the chief executive. And after our discussion, the final result now is 11 satellite casinos will be transitioned to the new concession. That means starting from next year, there will be 11 satellite casinos that will continue to operate. 11. Next question, please. I'm from All In Media. I want to ask about the investment, the total investment. You said is 100 billion. So can you briefly talk about how you calculate, how you get this amount? And so what is the amount of investment by each gaming operator? And is the existing project included in this 100 billion, or do you only include the project starting from next year? And also you talked about satellite casinos. There will be 11 starting from next year. So then what about the 7, the rest? And how do you protect the rights of the employees in the 6 satellite casinos that we won't see next year? About the investment in yes, about 108 billion. We have a set of rules to calculate this amount. because these gaming operators have been operating in Macau. So the projects that have been running are not included. For example, the projects they have already got the license, operation license for the projects, and these projects are not included in the investment. So we adopt the same standard to same criteria to calculate the amount of investment. So the total amount now is more than 100 billion. As for the investment by each gaming operator, I actually didn't calculate that. But I think after the press conference today, we will also show the contracts via the Gazette, and you can see the investment amount by each gaming concessionaire. But the amount is a combination of gaming and non-gaming. And about the specific projects by the gaming operators, I think tomorrow Mr. Lei and I will go to the press conference tomorrow too. I think, yes, tomorrow you can learn more about them. So about satellite casinos, Mr. Lei, please. Okay, you asked about satellite casinos. For the casinos, so there will be 7 satellite casinos that will not be left starting from next year. So about the staff employed by the gaming operators, there are 1,886 workers. So these workers have to be recruited by the gaming operators, and they have to arrange them to work in their casinos. So local 22, non-local 32. We hope that the gaming operators can help arrange a job for them, and the Labor Affairs Bureau also is ready to help them, and we will make sure that their rights, their labor rights, will not be damaged. Next question, please. So now we will open to journalists who have asked already. I'm from TDM. According to their investment plans, then what economic benefit do you expect each year? And as said by Ms. Ao Yuanyu, within a short period of time, you expect there will be further loosening of policy. So will flights resume, and will there be more international flights between Macau and other places? About the investment plans by the gaming operators, 100 billion sounds great, sounds huge, but 100 billion is spread over 10 years. And they are to be used in different areas as stated in the bidding documents. So we cannot say clearly the economic benefit of this investment, because it's very hard to calculate. But we stated very clearly that the investment should be in 10 areas, and we also had a estimate. We hope that, for example, in sports, in performances, in events, or marine activities, or big health industry, we hope that These fields can attract more tourists to Macau and can attract tourists from different places to Macau so that visitors can stay longer than before in Macau. We hope that through the investment in non-gaming sector, the non-gaming projects can generate higher economic benefit, effectiveness. Because if visitors stay longer in Macau, then of course it will contribute to Macau's economy positively and also can help with the development of Macau's local neighborhoods.
I believe that the pandemic policies will be further loosened. And after there's more flexibility, I believe there will be more tourists to Macau, and there will be more local residents to travel somewhere else. And because there are needs, and therefore the ferries and the flights will be restored in a time in the future. And in fact, we're making preparations right now. Next question. The gentleman over there. I'm from Asia again. Also about the satellite casinos. Because in the future, 11 satellite casinos will still maintain operations. So what are those companies that belong to? Another question is that previously it's mentioned that there will be a specialized zone for foreign tourists. And how many, would there be any detailed you can review now? How many tables will there be? What will be the arrangements? And how to attract the overseas tourists coming here? Thank you. About the satellite casinos, we just mentioned that according to the contracts, there will be 11 satellite casinos which will resume operation. And after the contract is signed, you will see what are these satellite casinos. And among these 11, SMJ will have 9, Galaxy will have 1, Melco will have 1. And you just asked about the overseas tourists specialized zone. We introduced that the special zone will just for the convenience of calculating the benefits and the revenue from them, from the overseas tourists, so that it can be considered when we're having the calculation of tax. And it depends on the casino. It depends on the arrangement of the floor plan. And our supervision bureau will negotiate with the 6 enterprises. Next question. This lady, Jen. We're from GCS Asia, and just now the secretary mentioned there will be 11 satellite casinos, and we'll enter into the new stage. Are there any information review how many of them can still have the wish to resume operation, to continue operation after the 3 transitional years? Just now we mentioned that according to the new regulations, that they can enter into the new stage. They have 3 years of a transitional period. I believe that these 11 casinos can't say right now if they can survive the 3 years. It depends on their situation of operation. And we emphasize that the satellite casinos, if they can continue or not, depends on the requirement of the law. And these casinos and their relationship and their agreement with the enterprises, and therefore I can't give you a definite answer right now. Any other questions? This gentleman. Good afternoon. I'm from Macau Daily News, and talking about the investment plan, the overseas, what is the percentage of the overseas tourists? Right now, it's only 10%. So what will be your expected percentage in the future? Next year, there will be a preliminary. Before the opening of the gaming market in the past, those overseas, the percentage of the overseas people coming higher. But now, in recent years, the percentage is lower. But it's less than 10%. In the past, we mentioned previously that it's only 3.5%, 3.58%. And during the public tender process this time, we asked each enterprise to offer their method, their plan to attract the overseas customers. And we have some designated goals. Of course, to explore an overseas market, it could not be achieved within a very short period of time. It requires some arrangements, and it needs time. And also the construction of premises. And we also need to use the personal relationships to establish relations. And therefore, through the negotiations with enterprises, the committee required them to submit more detailed plans. And they would be required to increase the percentage year on year. And we hope that with the time of development, we will have a larger overseas market. We could be at least double the current number. So, do you mean that it's the double of 3.58? I think it's more than that. It should be more than double of it. But you know, there are a lot of elements, factors that needs to be considered. And the SCR government has followed up. And also we will have other specialized committees to follow it up and to supervise the work on the exploring of the overseas market. And we will know exactly what is the percentage. Any questions? Good afternoon. I'm from Oli Media. I would like to know about the junket promoters. How many companies are there? How many companies have signed contract with these 6 enterprises? Just now you talked about the extension of the junket promoters. According to the regulations, we're going to release it in January next year. And each enterprise will have its junket promoters company. And there is also a transitional provision in the new regulation law. And they have their rights and obligations. And we hope that the junket promoters will provide assistance and to help those enterprises to promote to the overseas market. Thank you. Any other questions? If there's no question, that's all for the press conference today. Thank you very much.